Welcome to Unveiling Death. I am Rabbi Jeffrey Weil. My wife's suicide, my struggle to move forward, with Alan Farkas. Alan Farkas is a software architect with more than 40 years of IT experience as a consultant and application developer. He works for a leading global services firm. Alan also is an active member of Ezra-Habonim, the Niles Township Jewish Congregation, where I serve as rabbi. Alan lives in Des Plaines, Illinois, with Peekie, his 14-year-old Shih-Tzu, and Morty, his 4-year-old Siamese cat. Before we begin, please share this and other Unveiling Death episodes with your family and friends and neighbors and enemies too. Why not? And please follow this podcast as well. Here's my conversation with Alan Farkas. Alan Farkas, welcome to Unveiling Death.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me here.
So, your wife, Tamar, it's been 4 years, just about 4 years, since she committed suicide. Let's just begin by just use a few select adjectives to describe Tamar.
It's hard because she has so many things, but intelligent, beautiful, and intense.
And intense.
Intense.
Gotcha. Intense, how so?
In many ways. Intense, emotionally intense, intellectually intense, and passionately. She was very intense. And also the way she cared about people.
I remember Tamar being very concerned, interested in me, my family, really asked good questions. So she was a caring person. As part of that intensity, or related to it, I think somehow she had chronic pain. And the chronic pain was really twofold. It was emotional and it was physical.
She had really intense migraine headaches that she had since she was a young adult. They just got worse over the years to the point where she would have them daily. In the morning, she'd wake up with a 3 out of 10, and that was on a good day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes she'd wake up with a 5 out of 10. And no matter how much pain or little pain she was in the morning, it would usually increase as the day wore on.
I see. How old was Tamar when she died?
She was 51.
51. And how many years were you married?
We were married about 7 years, and we were together 8.
Gotcha. So describe, if you would, what happened on the day that she took her life. What was that? What happened? Just walk us through that, please.
So it was the first Monday after Thanksgiving. She was having a really bad couple of weeks. Just her pain was really bad, and nothing seemed to work. And she was feeling hopeless and kind of edgy, and she used to take this medication at night that made her really anxious. So she always had a fair amount of anxiety. She had blown up at me a couple times over something stupid on Thanksgiving, like one time because I dropped a turkey. But it was fine. But she was feeling guilty about that, and she told me in the morning that she was feeling bad about it. And the funny thing was I had forgotten about that incident, and when she told me, I became deeply hurt because I remember how hurt I was when she told me, and I wish I had said something to her like it's fine, it doesn't matter, but I didn't. I just didn't know what to say.
Right. So that was the morning that she...
Yeah, that was the morning. And she made me lunch. I work at home. I was downstairs working. I came up for lunch. I just noticed some things were off. I noticed there was a bunch of things on the counter in the kitchen, like a corkscrew and some remnants of a wine bottle, maybe, the wrapping, and just some other things. And, my mind was kind of swirling, like what was going on? Something seemed off. After I got done eating lunch, she gave me a kiss, and she told me how much she loved me, and she was sorry for ever saying anything bad to me. And I wasn't sure what to say because it just felt odd. I said the same thing to her, but my mind was really racing, and I think I knew what it was, but for some reason I couldn't fully process it. And instead of just asking her, was she planning on taking her life, what was going on, I just went downstairs to go to work. About a little over an hour later, I heard her phone ring, and she wasn't picking up. And I knew immediately what had happened. I ran upstairs. The bedroom door was locked. I had to get the key for it, which I kept handy because, there was always a fear that something like this would happen. I got in there, and there were pillows all over the bed. She was non-responsive. I tried for a minute to wake her up. After that, I called 911, and they had me give her chest compressions while they were, underway. And it didn't take them too long, but I noticed she started to turn blue. Within a few minutes, they were there, but I had to run downstairs to let them in. They got up there, and they were about to take her to the hospital, but she went to cardiac arrest, so I had to work on her for like 20 minutes, which at the time I didn't realize what a warning sign that was. The other thing I didn't realize is that in the bathroom, she had a popcorn bucket mixed with a concoction of sparkling wine and this medicine she took, GHB, basically. It's a really strong sedative. She took at night because that was the only way she could sleep, but it was very dangerous. I think like a class 1 medication. She had actually Googled online, like, what's the best way to kill yourself with that medication.
You discovered this later.
I discovered this later. And if I had seen that right away, I would have called, not even waited to call 911. But so they, I met her at the emergency room. She was non-responsive. At the time, I thought, oh, she's going to come out of this. Eventually I had to go home. Because it was COVID, I couldn't see her in the hospital for, that week. And I started to get scared because, I would get calls from her doctors saying that she wasn't responding to various kind of tests. She had stopped breathing. When they took her in, she was on a respirator. And then after a day or two, she actually started breathing on her own, which I thought was a good sign, but it didn't really mean anything good. Because that was an autonomic function. But they would do these tests where they would puncture her foot or scrape her foot, and there was no response. She wasn't moving, she wasn't speaking. I don't know if it was Wednesday of that week or maybe Thursday, I got a call from her doctor saying that she was never going to have any kind of quality of life ever again. And I knew what that meant. I mean, I could have asked more questions, but at that point it didn't really matter because I knew that Tamar, if somehow she ever came out of it, she would have been so compromised. She would not want to live like that.
But she had never come out of it.
She never come out of it.
Right. So at what point did you decide to remove life support, and how long was that after the day that she took the pills?
It was sometime that week. I don't know if it was the day after the doctor had called me with the horrible news. But I think we went in that Sunday after she was brought in on a Monday, that Sunday, to take her off of life support. And at that point, I was able to see her, and then they moved her into a hospice ward in the hospital. So I was able to spend the next week with her.
I remember I was there. I visited one or two times, including the day that she came off life support. But before they did that, you took a few minutes with just you and Tamar in that room. So you don't have to reveal anything specific, but what was the point, what were you trying to achieve in those few minutes? Just before they took her off life support?
I basically expressed a bunch of regrets that I had, and how much I loved her, and how much I miss her, and how much she meant to me.
Right. So let's talk about the regrets. Regret is a common response to people who are left behind when someone they love kills themselves. So is regret, we've discussed this over the years as well, but can you put a specific, what is that regret? And has it changed or evolved or really lessened over the years?
So it is less intense, but some things I can't let myself off the hook of. So there's different kinds of regret. One is I wish I'd made, have to do with our relationship. So I wish I'd made better use of the time that we had together. Even though we did spend a lot of time together, but I wish there was more quality time. Tamara didn't get to go out much, and I wished, I had done those things to bring her more joy and get her out in the world. I felt guilty about all the petty arguments we had, things like that. Missed opportunities to connect with her. Because when somebody's in a lot of pain and also has emotional baggage, I have my own baggage, it's really easy to misconnect
Right.
and lose each other at times.
I should just point out that you both married in your 40s, 50s or something. You don't have children, so
No.
that was not part of the. You did not been dealing with that, but you did spend a lot of time together.
We did, because I worked at home and she was homebound a lot of the time.
Right.
And we just loved being with each other. We love talking, we love joking, we love watching different programs. We had the same taste in music and media and politics and a lot of things, the way we looked at the world, the sense of humor especially.
Right. Let's get back to the regrets. So what made it decrease? What made it abate? Has it just been time? Or have there been therapy?
Therapy and, one of the things I did that, because especially in the beginning, I could hardly function. And one thing that helped me was I would listen to this self-hypnosis CD called Grieving Well, which took you through different types of emotions and gave me a chance to say goodbye to Tamar and forgive her and forgive myself. And visualize letting her go. So it's something that helped with me.
How frequently did you listen to that Grieving Well?
I think I did it almost every day for some number of months.
Suicide is a topic that makes people feel uncomfortable. People around you, sometimes they don't know how to respond. How have your friends and family reacted? I'm sure there have been both the positive and the negative.
So with the exception of maybe a couple friends and my mom and my boss and his wife, who were wonderful and really helped me out, the response has been, or the support has been pretty disappointing.
Do you think that would be different if she had died in a different way?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Maybe if her family was in the picture and she had more friends and it wasn't COVID, it might be a little bit different, but I'm not sure.
Right. So, so the response has been not what you wanted it to be. What does that mean?
It was really disappointing. Like one of my best friends, when he and his wife came to visit me and brought me some food, they just he almost talked to me like it was just another day. Like he didn't really acknowledge that she had passed away or how I was doing or how I was feeling. Just talked about other things.
Right. Well, number one, suicide is a complicating factor, but death is difficult. That's partly why I'm doing this podcast. So, is there a way to see his and his wife's visit as that is the best they could do to offer condolences? Not everyone could be an expert to really know how to respond in these situations.
I guess. Of course I appreciate whatever they did, but it's also confusing because they both have dealt with close family losses. I was very disappointed. Mm-hmm. Still a good friend of mine, but I just was very disappointed at the time. I really needed a lifeline, and I wasn't getting it from the places I expected it to.
Right. You said you've also found support, even just fleeting moments of kindness from strangers.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it fleeting. It was like really unexpected and really wonderful. A year after Tamar had passed, I went in to see the optometrist, and she asked me how I was doing, and I just told her. And she pulled me into her office, and she took me aside, and she said that she deals with depression and suicidal thoughts on a daily basis. And she told me that Tamar was going to do this, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. And before you ask me about my regret, it's things like this, conversations with people that help me feel less regretful about not being more active or proactive about stopping her.
Mm-hmm.
And I had another encounter just in front of my house. I was walking my dog, and there was a woman there with her child, and she gave me a compliment on a T-shirt I was wearing and on my dog's collar, and I mentioned that my late wife had picked out that collar. And then she just stopped, and she talked with me for a half hour about my loss, and it was wonderful.
I'm curious, what did she say? So she heard late wife, and did that trigger something with her? She responded?
Yeah, and it was probably the reason why I said late, not just wife.
Mm-hmm.
I was, again, throwing out a lifeline. But I honestly don't remember what she said, except that she talked to me for almost a half hour about my loss and asked me questions and was very supportive.
Have you bumped into her again?
No, I don't think I have.
So they're like little angels, big angels, these people. And that's why it's not fleeting. I mean, if you're talking about it now, really years later, these are, maybe the encounters might have been, in the scheme of things, fleeting. The people you didn't really know, but the attention they gave you. I think that's what it comes down to. At least for the woman that you saw in the neighborhood, it was really, maybe I'm wrong, but not necessarily what she said specifically, but that she was present for you.
Yeah. And with my optometrist, it was both. It was the fact she was present for me and what she said and how she opened herself up to me. I mean, the fact that she told me something about herself,
right,
which is pretty private.
Right. So you have two pets. You have a dog and you have a cat. Peekie and
Morty. Morty's my cat.
I was going to say Walter. Morty. Peekie and Morty. Peekie was Tamar's dog. Is that right?
That's correct.
Right. So I'm glad they're still with you and bringing you joy, but they've also brought you comfort.
They have. But, Peekie's a very sweet dog, and she was just there for me, and now, she sleeps with me, and she greets me at the door, as does my cat. I got a Siamese cat, Morty, just like a month after Tamara passed. And, he's been a bundle of joy. He's also very destructive, but, he's a very sweet cat. He's very smart, and, he greets me and wants attention, and it's a comfort to have him there in the morning when I wake up and at night when I go to bed. You
didn't call the dogs very smart. You only called the cat very smart.
Yeah, my Peekie's not very smart. I mean, she's good at she's good at like body language, and Tamar did a good job of training her so she can like roll over on command and things like that. But she can't figure out how to open up doors.
No offense to any of my dog friends, including my own dog. But in addition to those strangers, in addition to certain friends and family members, and in addition to your four-legged mammal beloveds, the congregation has been helpful to you. And I just want to share, Tamara was more involved in this congregation. She was more present than you were. She came to classes, and sometimes you came to Kolenu together, one of our really fun musical services. I remember her response to it was quite a very spiritual response to that.
She loved Kolenu.
But you were not around nearly as much. But I do remember the day that I can even still picture it, that I got a phone call and it was your name, not Tamar Farkas, but Alan Farkas. And I knew at that moment, as we have discussed, what happened because I knew what she had been going through. But since that time, you have become very deeply involved in the synagogue. What role has the synagogue, or you could even say more broadly, what role has community played in your mourning process?
It's something that Tamara and I wanted to do together, and I was kind of dragged my feet on it. And I wish I hadn't, because we could have done this together. But the congregation's meant a lot to me. You've meant a lot to me. And it's also, I think, a way for me to connect with Tamara. There's a number of things that I do now, sometimes unintentionally. Sometimes they mirror things that Tamara used to do. And I think she would be proud of me. I think, sometimes when I'm up on the bima, I don't know, it just makes me feel better.
You were on the bima for the high holidays. Did you think during that time about Tamar and the possibility that she would be, or the belief that she would be proud of you at that moment?
Yeah, I pretty much always do when I'm in a situation like that here.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Sometimes I think earlier on I used to picture her like sitting next to me.
So you wanted to do this beyond unveiling death, and I'm grateful that you did. Why did you want to share this story, and in this way?
So a couple things happened. One is, I started listening to your podcast, and I found myself wanting more discussion or something closer to the actual grieving process and death. And at the same time, I think, I had a desire to share what I've been going through, maybe with more people. And I thought it might actually help people, because it's a pretty unique experience. I've gone to some support group sessions for victims of suicide or survivors, and everybody kind of agrees it's different than other types of deaths. And unless you've gone through it, it's really hard to understand. So I thought this might be helpful to other people.
Helpful to other people, and I want to get back to that in a moment, and also helpful to you, just to talk about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Is this helpful?
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm. Is it self-conscious in any way, doing this with wearing a lapel mic?
I had forgotten about that until you reminded me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You also talked about what you've learned about mourning, not exclusive to mourning over someone who took their own life, but the non-linear process or evolution of mourning. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, initially I was in a different place. I thought, I'm feeling horrible, but I'm going to move on with my life. I may start dating again or whatever. But I've had these bouts, these periods lasting several months, where I'm just really missing Tamar, and it's really hard for me to let go. And she has, even though we were together a relatively short amount of time, our time together was fairly intense, and I have such a strong feeling of her. In fact, she used to say that that I used to know her better than she knew herself.
Right. So that non-linear aspect. So you mean that sometimes there's progress, sometimes there's looking ahead, and sometimes, and not just moments, but really it sounds like for periods of time, it's all part of the process, I guess, but it does not feel like progress.
Yeah, it doesn't. I feel stuck. I do feel like I'm not moving on, and I know that, her spirit is still there. She'd be very unhappy with me.
I just want to clarify, during those times you feel stuck.
I feel stuck all the time.
You do?
I do.
Mm-hmm. That's the feeling part of it. Is there an intellectual part that makes you think that that feeling stuck is part of your process of moving forward, or is that not in your ken
I think
right
the
now?
issue is I'm not moving. I'm kind of moving forward. I have done a number of things, become more social, but I also at the same time I don't take the best care of myself. It's complicated. I have lost weight. I am eating well, but I don't get enough sleep. I don't exercise. I don't take more control of my life.
Mm-hmm. Those things would help, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, I look forward to our next walk in nature, which we've done several times.
Yes, we have.
And I'm sure that this conversation, for those who listen to it, will be helpful to others, and I sincerely hope it's helpful to you too. And I thank you for talking to me for Unveiling Death.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Many thanks to Alan Farkas. Thanks also to the podcast's creative director, editor, and my son, Sammy Weil. Thanks to my band, the Night Owls of Chicago, for the music you are listening to right now. Feel free to contact me at rabbiw14@gmail.com. Share this and other Unveiling Death episodes with your friends and family, and please follow this podcast as well. And thank you for listening to Unveiling Death, Eternity in about 24 minutes, every other Monday.